people think that I must be really organized and really consistent, but the really is I'm not, but I've created my business to be. And I think that's a really great lesson in creating your business as a vehicle, as a tool to support you, not changing everything about yourself to support a business.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Love, Sex and Magic with me, your host, Melissa Wells. And today's guest is, just such a special woman. She is, I would say, arguably the number one money mindset expert, mentor, coach. She's someone who I've learned from for years, really, around money. She's a dear friend. It is, of course, the lucky bitch herself, Denise Duffield-Thomas. Denise Duffield-Thomas is the money mentor for the new wave of online female entrepreneurs who want to make money and change the world. She helps women charge premium prices, release the fear of money, and create first-class lives. Her books, Lucky Bitch, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch, and Chillpreneur give a fresh and funny roadmap to living a life of abundance without burnout. And her Money Bootcamp has helped over 6,000 students from all over the world. So this episode was honestly, you guys, this episode is packed. So packed full of juicy money stories and shifts and blocks and ways in which we can start to heal our relationship with money so that we can step into more abundance, more freedom in our lives. And you're just going to love this. She's just hilarious as well. So enjoy this episode. Let's do this. So Denise Duffield-Thomas, welcome to Love, Sex and Magic.
Thank you. I have to say the title threw me a little bit because when I saw the sex part, I was like, I'm tired. I've got 3 kids. Are we going to have to talk about sex? I'm like, are we talking about money and magic? I'm like, okay.
I love it. Well, I mean, we kind of talk about everything and anything on this show, but you're definitely someone who I've looked to for years and years when it comes to money magic and manifestation. And probably what people would never guess is just how long we've known each other and how long we've been in each other's space. And actually, you were the first teacher that I had around not just money, but manifestation completely.
Oh, wow.
I had never heard about manifesting. I had never heard about this. This was before you came into my life with this money manifestation. Before I'd watched The Secret, listened to Esther Hicks, like I learned a lot of the tools that you teach, many, many years ago. So thank you for your work. And I've seen you just be so consistent with it over the years as well, which has been really impressive.
Oh, thank you. And, it's funny, the consistency thing. I'd love to talk about that today if we can, because people think that I must be really organized and really consistent, but the really is I'm not, but I've created my business to be. And I think that's a really great lesson in creating your business as a vehicle, as a tool to support you, not changing everything about yourself to support a business. And even recently I've discovered that I've got ADHD, and I was like, oh wow, I've actually layered in all of these things into my life and business without knowing it, that I had it, to create this outwardly very consistent business that seems to be very organized. And like I'm not that, but it just goes to show you just have to put the systems in place to support who you are and what you want to do and your lifestyle, your life cycle. Because since we've probably known each other, I've had 3 kids. I've lived in different places. I've moved around a lot, but outwardly my business has just been showing up week after week, day after day, and it's not as hard as people think it might be to do that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Well, first of all, I'd love if you could share with everyone listening what it is that you are really doing in the world for women around money, who it is that you're helping, and how it is that you're helping them.
Yeah. So I call myself a money mindset mentor. And like a lot of people in business, I've gone through varying like job titles. I was like, am I a coach? Am I a speaker? Am I an author? What do I do? And so I call myself a mentor. So I'm here to help you think about money in a different way, to examine your beliefs and stories that you might have had for your whole life, and to create a new, more empowering story. Because I truly believe that more money in the hands of women, um, of uh, of people in the LGBT community, that's what's going to change the world. It's not continuing the status quo of these big corporations run by men to have money. It's really putting it in the hands of people who really do care about the planet and who care about our communities and care about each other. And I just think we live in the best time to do that, where the technology supports us having businesses based on our skills and talents, no matter where we are in the world and whatever our life circumstances. It can support us to make our own money, but we get in our own way around it. So I don't teach people how to market their businesses, how to set up their businesses, but I help you get out of your own way when it comes to receiving money for what you do.
Mm. Love that. And I think it's really good the way that you're doing that is in a very feminine way. It's very much about the energetics and the spiritual relationship that we have with money, and how we are, we face these blocks, as you call them, these money blocks. And you're really helping people to overcome these blocks. From what I understand, it's less about, here is the exact blueprint of how you can make money, like the strategy. And it's more about like the energetics of how you can allow more in, receive more in any line of work.
Absolutely, because we all want to do business in a different way. And I think that's what I personally struggled with when I started my businesses in my early 20s, because I would buy a course, follow a mentor, try and do it the way she was doing it. And that can be really hard. I feel like I'm someone who's a good student. And so I would really diligently try and do what they told me to do, but not honoring who I was as a person, my real inner strengths, my values, my desires. And it took me a long time to be okay with the fact that I have quite low energy. Like, that's what my books are about, right? Is like, find the hacks, because because you don't want to hustle. And
Yeah.
then when I had kids as well, I was like, oh my God, how can I follow this blueprint from this very type A childless woman when I suddenly have kids? And even myself, I think of my early days as a coach. Like, when some of my clients had kids, I didn't get it either. And now I see people in my community who, they've got a chronic illness. They can't do business like their type A hustle culture mentor. And so I think we live in this world where you can really pick and choose what works for you, but you still have to do that inner work. And I still have to do that inner work all the time. Just
For
yesterday,
sure.
I had a session with one of my support team, and we were talking, like, really, she's a naturopath. We talk about what vitamins I need and things like that, but she also does EFT. And so we always talk about limiting beliefs when I go see her, because it's not just about taking the vitamins. And so she was like, what do you want to work on this week? And I said, well, I'm trying to write my next book, and I keep on coming across this belief that I'm not a real writer. And so we had to do, and I will continue to have to do sessions on that, because I was saying, I do have some books published, but I'm not a real writer. and
Yeah, you are.
but like, no amount of money is just going to cure all of your mindset stuff. It's just an ongoing
Yes.
process, because there's going to be new stuff that comes up. There's going to be old stuff that comes up. And that's what I'm more interested in, because when it comes to writing a book, you just sit and write a freaking book, right? And there's only a couple of ways you can do it. And I think it's the same in business. If you want to learn how to do anything, there's a free course. You can Google it. You can buy a course and just learn how to do it. But without all the dealing with the gremlins, you're always going to be fighting against yourself. And for me, that fundamental thing of, well, I'm not a real writer, that's going to be hard every time I sit down to just write the book. So yeah, the mindset stuff is the only stuff I think that we have to constantly work on. Everything else you can Google or buy or follow a checklist.
That's such a good point. So what would you say are like the top 3 like money blocks that are ingrained in most women's minds? What do you see the most?
So these cover like 80% of the stuff that I see, and then everyone has nuances within those. Okay, so the first one is you have to work really hard to make money. Second one is you can make money or help people, but not both. And there's so many nuances within that. And then the third one is more money, more problems. A vague sense that everyone's got their own personal fears about what that would be. You have to uncover those. So let's talk about these one by one, right? Work hard to make money. Just so deeply ingrained in our lives, in our culture, in most of our upbringings. And so I'm in my 40s. I grew up in a world where internet and phones just weren't really a thing until I was at university. And so I grew up in this world where to run a business meant, being an entrepreneur was kind of reserved to people who had a lot of capital, who were wealthy already. And it just wasn't an easeful kind of thing to just be an entrepreneur, because you had to make stuff most of the time. I think kids growing up now, of course, they're growing up in a digital world where you can make money opening toys on YouTube. It's a completely different thing. But for those of us who grew up in an analog world, we sometimes struggle bridging that gap because it doesn't quite compute. Take that aside, generation aside, it still doesn't quite. Sometimes we think that everyone knows this world, this entrepreneurial world, but the truth is that most people don't. Most people go to work and they exchange, an hour of their time for a certain amount of dollars, or they make a widget, they get paid for that widget. And so the idea that you can make money in a way that's really easy and easeful and leveraged and not aligned to 1 hour equals that amount of money, it just doesn't quite compute. And you think of us as humans, our brains are just not wired to think in that way. It's like this and that. And so you've got to kind of be compassionate about that really deep down, it's just, you just don't believe it can or should be easy. And then it's just all around us in movies, TV, culture, your parents, what your parents said to you about money. And so there's a lot of unlearning that it's allowed to be fun and easy. And what I said before about we live in this amazing time is that my nan had a great imagination. My grandma, she was super creative. She could do incredible things, but she didn't live in a time where she could transmute that into money. And you talk about magic. What is the internet if not magic? Like I don't understand how it works. It's magic as far as I'm concerned. The fact that you and I are talking together, it's magic, right? And so live in this world, you and I live in this world where we can use what's in our imaginations and transmute that into money to be able, and to be able to help and serve people. But there's going to be some conflicting feelings around that is ours, that it's our parents, it's our generations. It's the fact that we see poverty still in the world and it feels unfair and it feels guilt-inducing because it's not fair. It's absolutely not fair. And so already we've just touched on a couple of things, but there's so much behind that we are stuck in this work hard for money environment. And, you and I grew up in different countries, but we also live in a very Americanized kind of society where hustle culture is very American and it permeates throughout the world. In England, it's not polite to talk about money. In Australia, you have to be very it's that laid back culture because it's like, well, you can't be seen to want it. You have to be very
Right.
like cash about it. So,
Yeah, I would
it's a
say
lot.
in England, it's kind of like not, it's almost like for me when I grew up, like what I saw around money was that it wasn't safe to want it, but also we like me, not really like my family as such, but just what I saw growing up was people that had money were judged, criticized, shamed, not liked. And it was almost like, well, why would I want to be someone that has all this money if I'm going to not be liked?
Totally. Totally. So when you look at all of that stuff, there's no wonder that when someone sits down to work at her computer, goes to hit publish on a blog post, it's not just the fear of, oh my God, what if I get a hater? That is just one tiny thing that's like all the other stuff, right? Of like going against the grain of my culture, my society, my family. People won't like me. There's so much there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the second one, because I think this is where the nuance starts to come for a lot of women is I can help people or make money, but you can't do both. And so
Yeah.
I see people, they're working so hard and they are helping, but there's never a call to action of like, and you can buy from me and I can help you with this. It's just because, and let's talk about it from a gendered point of view, right? There are studies that show that they're just taught to share, to encourage to share, and to help people, are praised for being helpful. And so that's just one aspect of it. And then you think of some training, and I know that you have trained in different modalities, and you think of some of the trainings ingrained in it of, well, don't think you're going to make money out of this, or I hope you're in this for the right reasons, just to help people.
Yeah.
And there are nuances within that. If you're in the health world, if you are a
Mm.
doula, if you're in the birthing world, if you are in the spiritual world and you're helping people with your spiritual gifts, it's like, oh, we're not allowed to besmirch this with money.
Great word.
Yes, it has to be pure and giving. And let's just pretend the money side isn't even here. And this is where,
Mm.
like, I'm so aware of this as a consumer, as a customer. And so I'll be like, so do you want my credit card details? Like, I'm like, because I know that
Yeah.
spiritual people will just go, oh, that's okay. Let's not sully this with money.
Yes.
I have
Because it's
friends.
like this belief that money is evil, money is wrong, money is, we're feeding into like capitalism and all of this stuff. But it's also like that can be our relationship with it, or we can change our relationship with it. And I've worked with clients as well who come to me and they're just the most incredible healers, incredible teachers of so much knowledge and wisdom and embodied just gifts to share with the world. And I look at their prices and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you may as well be giving this away. Like, there's so much value in what you're doing, but it's this whole thing of like, it's not the spiritual thing to be able to earn more from this gift that's helping someone change their life.
Well, because it feels like it has to be two separate lanes. Here's where I help people, and here's where I make money. And where we're going to change the world is when we just like, I can see it intertwined like beautiful, DNA strands, because
Mm.
when we make money doing what we love, helping people, a beautiful exchange, like an equal exchange, we can transmute that money into even greater things as well of, serving our communities. And it's okay to buy stuff that you like as well. Like, it's okay just to
Yes.
to buy stuff. But like, I can just see it. It's like, it doesn't have to be like this. It can just be, beautiful. And like, let's create magic with this money and let's change the planet and let's fund the things that we want to see in the world. And there's just a really great lesson in that of how we can use money as a tool for good, just like we have used,
Mm.
women for eons have used what we have to create good in the world. We're very thrifty or we're very enterprising and resourceful, but it's like money is a resource too that we can use to create some amazing
Absolutely.
things. So there's a lot of unlearning around that. It could be unlearning from your teachers, your mentors, your family, your lineage of the work that you were in, where it's like, no, it's totally okay. I serve, I deserve, because it's a circle. And
Mm-hmm.
I've done this myself, Mel. I'm sure you have. When I've undercharged for something, the imbalance feels horrible.
Yeah.
It feels horrible. It comes from our life force. The balance has to come from somewhere. And when you're not receiving money in equal exchange for the value you're putting out, it creates this horrible blockage. And for a long time, I undercharged for speaking, because I just was like, oh, it's my friend's conference. Like, it's my friend's mastermind. I'll just go just because I love her. But it made me feel sick at the end. I would leave, and instead of feeling joyful, like, oh wow, I was like, I would feel disgusting in myself, because I was making up for that deficit. My life force energy
Yeah.
was making up for that deficit. And so that's why when you get to when you work with someone who just has a great, easy money mindset, and they're just like, here's what I charge. And then it's just like, it feels balanced. It feels
Yes.
balanced. No one
Yeah.
feels like they owe each other. It's not awkward. It's just like, and I'm not talking about bartering here, because bartering can create a lot of imbalance, and bartering can stagnate the flow of money. And a friend of mine recently, she was just like, why isn't it working for me? I'm so frustrated because I know I've got talent. And I dug in a little further. She's got all these little bartering arrangements everywhere. And I'm like, babe, you are not
Yeah.
energetically open for business. You are open
Yeah.
for bartering arrangements, which is fine when we lived in villages. That's fine. We had to. That was the only ecosystem
Yeah.
we have. But we live in a world where our ecosystem is now the entire planet, and we can help people everywhere. And we don't have to survive on eggs and a bartering of eggs to survive. And so I said to her, you get rid of those bartering arrangements, your income will grow because you will be open for
Mm-hmm.
business. So yeah, that's the whole
Yeah.
thing. I can help people or make money. We've got to let them marry and marinate
Mm.
together.
It's like a way of unconsciously keeping ourselves small as well. I think the bartering thing, because I did that at the start of my business, and I would be like, I was coaching women around food, and I remember having conversations with someone, and she was like, if you coach me around food, I will run your Facebook ads, or if you do this, then we'll do a switch. And it stopped me from being able to really grow my business. And that exact energy thing that you said, exactly what happened. I just felt like, didn't want to show up for the calls, didn't feel good energetically, didn't feel like I was being really honored for my time. And I'm sure she probably felt the same. But I think one of the big shifts for me around this was actually giving myself permission to earn more than my family and friends. Because even though I started my business, was doing something very different than everyone else around me, it's like I still didn't feel like I was able to earn more, because I felt like, again, like I'm going to be pushed out, I'm going to be excluded, I'm not going to be loved anymore. People are going to, this was a big one for me. People are going to think that I think I'm too good for them now. That was a huge one for me. And as soon as I kind of gave myself permission to step into more money, more abundance, more wealth, and it was safe for me to do so, then it's like, okay, let's go.
Yes, absolutely. It's the not being liked thing, I think, is a big one for so many people. Or, I see people sometimes in our industry, they're undercharging because they're comparing their, hourly rate to maybe people in their life, not the value that they're giving to that particular
Mm-hmm.
target customer. And I remember my first year in business, my very first paid speaking gig. It was $500, and it was hilarious. It was for a government away day for like a transport group of transport workers, and it was like 80% men, and I was like talking about manifesting. It was hilarious.
I can't even imagine that.
Oh my God, it was so cute. And it was kind of when I was kind of half in corporate, half out. So I was like still wearing blue, but I was like wearing high heels and like a pencil skirt and stuff. It was hilarious. And they paid me $500, which in the grand scheme of, public speaking is not a lot of money. And, of course I didn't put into account like the work I had to put into the slides, which I hate, and the presentation. And it was 45 minutes drive each way. No, an hour and a half drive each way, actually. And all of these things. And I got my hair done and my nails done. And so actually I didn't make very much money at all by the time I paid for parking and my petrol and all of those things. But I was so excited and proud. And I said to my mom, like, oh, I'm, making $500 for this speech. And she was like, oh, for 45 minutes work. And then she was like, that's my weekly salary at the nursing home. And I felt like shit. Like, and she didn't mean it in like, you're such a bitch. She was just like, that's so unfair that we live in this world where my work is so underpaid and undervalued, and you can just talk on stage for 45 minutes, like about just random stuff, like about manifesting. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm a disgusting, horrible person. Like, I can't believe that's so unfair and it's so gross that I can do this. And I just had to do so much work around that. And still now today, like now I financially support my mum, so I don't feel guilty about earning heaps of money. But it's like, you can't compare what you're putting out in the world to what, a minimum wage worker in your family is earning, because you earning that doesn't take that away from that person. And you know what? I gladly pay so much in tax because I know I'm happy for that to support other people. And I think part of that is more women becoming more powerful too. We can lobby for change. We can try and make our worlds more equitable and fair, because I think minimum wage should be higher too. But that doesn't mean that we should hold ourselves back, because that money isn't going to go to that person by holding ourselves back.
And also, we need women earning money to inspire other women to want more for their lives as well.
Absolutely.
So what was the third money block? I don't think we did the third one, did we?
The third one is more money, more problems. And this is where everyone's got to find their own flavor of that, okay? Because it's totally related to your own fear, and that's usually related to your own experiences. So you've already mentioned people won't like me. I think that's a really common one, and it's also particularly painful for anyone who was bullied at school. And that's where you got to go and heal that as much as possible, because it will come up again and again. It will show up in the form of trolls. It will show up in the form of bullying. Because it's just going to prove that if I shine, it's not even making money. If I shine, something bad is going to happen and people are not going to like me. And that's huge. I see that in so many people. Even just sometimes people will come into like my Facebook group for my Money Bootcamp, and I had someone go, everyone here is so mean and bitchy. And I was like, that's actually not true. This is such a supportive space. But that's a really big sign that you have got some stuff to heal around women and around bullying, because you will see it everywhere if you don't heal that. But everyone's got their own thing. So it could be, if I make more money, I'll have to pay more taxes, then I'll get in trouble with the government, and then I'll be thrown in debtor's prison. Like, that lives within us so strongly, especially in Australia, where our country was founded by criminals and convicts sent from England who have, done something wrong. And so I find Australians have this real fear around authority, like we're going to get into trouble. Or it could be that, I can't have both love and money, one's going to give, or I can't have health and money, one's going to give, or I can't be a good mum. That's a big one. If I make more money, that means I'll be a terrible mum. And often you have to dig a little deeper into some of these things and go, actually, if I had more money, I'd probably, I wouldn't have to work as much, and I would have more time and energy for my kids. So this more money, more problems thing is so irrational sometimes, and so based on old stuff or what stories that you've seen other people experience. that
Yeah.
might be completely irrational. And so you just have to dig into that, find out what yours are. Some of them can be solved with EFT or therapy. Some of them are just going to always be irrational. Like, so I live right near the beach. I can see the ocean right there. And there was some part of me that was like, something bad's going to happen if I have my dream house. And I'm really scared of tsunamis. There's nothing I can do to stop that. Like I've looked at research, like how often have there been tsunamis on the east coast of Australia? I've got a tsunami plan in my head. But some things that people are worried about, you can go, you know what, like I can park that for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people tell me, oh my God, what about when I make $1 million? The taxes on that are going to be insane. And I'm like, just make your first $1,000. Park that in the future. And you can say to your brain, that's such a great, thing to think about. Like, let's park that for the future. And something I taught my daughter recently, because she was telling me all these fears that she had. And instead of going, well, they're stupid, that's irrational, I said to her, you know what? You have got such a great imagination. And I love this. And this is why I think, you're going to be a great writer one day, because you have a great imagination. And so I just taught her to say, whenever an irrational fear came up for her and she was worrying about it or couldn't sleep, I said to her, just say to your brain, that would be such a great plot for my next book. And then she didn't have to worry about it anymore. She could just go, God, I'm creative. This is amazing. And so some of those things, the more money, more problems, are just like, that's a future me problem. That's a future me problem. Or that's a great thing for me to write a blog post about for my community. Well done, brain.
Well done, brain. I love that. Yeah. For me, I remember like a really big one for me was I was always spending really fast everything that I earned. So I remember watching my income go up and my expenses would be like the same, like every month. And even though it would go up, I would still be spending. And what I realized when I did the work was I was getting rid of money because it didn't feel safe for me to hold on to it. And when I dug into my why, like where I first experienced this, I really got down to a childhood memory of mine, which was witnessing my dad being very avoidant around money, and actually ended up, my childhood home that I grew up in, it got taken off him because he wasn't good with money. And so because I witnessed that in him, I witnessed like, oh my God, like someone's going to take it off you all of a sudden. And so I was just getting rid of it because I was scared that someone else was going to just take it from me if I didn't. And it's a
really common one.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I was
it's super common. So there's a whole lesson we do in bootcamp around this, around like your relationship with savings.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have got a similar thing to you of like, it's not safe for me to have more than I need.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really interesting nuances around this. So one is, as women, as I said before, we're taught to share. And so there's this guilt when we have more than we need. We feel like we should push it away. Or there's a fear there that if I have more than I need, someone will take it. And maybe that's, happened to people too, where their brother stole their pocket money, or, they got in trouble for having money at school or something like that. And then there's other layers around this sometimes with creative people, in that they feel like they need that feast or famine in order to create.
Ooh.
It's like,
yeah, that's a good one.
What's that thing we say, hungry for success?
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized I had this one recently too, because I was the same as you. I always spent every single dollar. Like literally the day before I was due to get paid, I'd be like, I've got $5. What can I spend $5 on?
Yeah. Oh, it's the starving artist. Safe. The starving artist. That's another one, right?
Yes, right. And so I was trying to write my book, and I'm always trying to dig into, why is it so hard for me to write? Why is it so? And I went, I'm not hungry enough. I don't want it enough. I don't need it. And it was like, holy shit, I still feel like the muse is not going to show up because, I'm too abundant now. She's going to go visit the starving artist instead because they really need it.
Interesting.
And I don't. yeah, I don't deserve it. My life's too comfortable. And so there's something there around, like, again, that sharing thing. Someone else deserves this more than me. I have enough. Or the starving artist, like,
Mhm.
well, I'm not going to produce good work. My first book, I really wanted it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and now I'm just like, well, look at me, my fancy Miss Fancy Pants in your fancy big mansion. Why do you need to write another book? And because we've never been taught that you can create for creativity's sake. Like, what freaking abundance is
Mm.
that? Like, are you allowed to create from a place of abundance? Are you allowed to have a financial cushion and create from that? Or do you have to prove yourself by being this feast or famine mode? Because, and there's
Yeah.
something there sometimes in people's personalities where it's like, so it's part of their identity and ego that I can pull it out of my ass when I need to, but like, you go so close to the wire to prove
Mhm.
that you can. And sometimes you're addicted to that adrenaline rush of it, of like, I need the wolves chasing my door to do it.
Yeah.
And instead of going, I can create from comfort, I
Mm.
can manifest from a place of comfort. And that's what the law of attraction teaches us, right? You can't manifest from a place of lack. But at the start, you've got to fake it till you make it so much that you kind of get used to that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I don't have to pretend to be rich anymore. I am rich. Oh, now what? And that's totally a lucky bitch privilege problem. I get it. But I think there's something there in, for a lesson for all of us, is that it's okay for you to create comfort and ease.
Mm.
The whole time I lived in London, so I lived in London for 10 years. I was so miserable and cold so much of the time. I never had a proper winter coat. I never had proper winter boots. I never had an electric blanket the whole time I lived in London for 10 years. And I was so cold, but it never occurred to me that I could just go to Argos and probably spend £20 on an electric blanket, or go, because I never grew up in that space of like, it's okay to have comfort. Like,
Mm.
I just grew up in, it's like, you have to be scrappy and make do with what you've got,
Yeah.
and you get what you're given.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. I mean, part of my childhood, I remember like doing a lot of car boot sales with my mum, and we would go and just sell all of our crap for like 50p or a pound. And we would spend like 8, 9 hours just like in the freezing cold selling all this rubbish that we didn't want anymore. And we might make like £20 that day, or, wow, like
Yeah.
that was a great day. But I would, another point to add to that is I would probably be wandering around other people's car boots buying more crap with the money that I'd made. Anyway, I think from that, like, I really thought that, like, like you said earlier, like, earning money was like a slog. It took a lot of work to make a little bit of money. And one of the things that you taught me so many years ago was to track my money every day. And that's something that I've kept up over the years. And it's something that I absolutely swear by. It's something that I share with my clients as well. Because I used to think that if someone was like really good with money and they saved everything and they tracked all of their income, all of their expenses, did the budgeting, I would see those people as A, boring, B, controlling, and C, not someone that I ever wanted to be. Not fun, right? I was like, it's way more fun my way, right? I just spend, but I don't look at it. And it's more fun this way. I don't want to be like that. And what I've learned really through doing this money mindset work is that tracking is taking care of, and it's a real act of self-love. And for me, when I set an income goal now, I'm also setting a savings goal, and that really that feels like a real act of self-love, to like be able to save
Yes.
alongside what I'm earning. It feels like, oh, I'm really doing something loving for myself. And so instead of money being this thing of like, oh, I don't want to look at it, oh God, why do I have to deal with money, oh, if it wasn't for money, money's such a pain in the ass, blah blah blah, I'm like, oh, I really appreciate all of this money that I get to take care of and love and put in the right places and save.
You know what? There's so many great ahas around that for people. So I hear this a lot, and you probably do as well, when you say to people, what are your goals, or what do you want to make? And they just freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so many of us have been taught that if you want something, you're not allowed to acknowledge it. And if you look at your money too closely, it will go away. And I hear this sometimes in Money Bootcamp where I say, track, track, track. And they go, but as soon as I track, Denise, it all goes to shit. And I go, okay, cool. You know what? You have heard so many times in your whole life, every single birthday party that you went to, people would say, make a wish, but don't tell anyone or it won't come true.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so deeply ingrained in one of the universal money blocks, I think, that we give children is don't acknowledge your desires, and particularly don't say them out loud, because you will jinx it. It will run away from you, and you won't be deserving of it. And so, like we say we go, hey, no, we do talk about wishes in our family. And I have said that to our kids, every single birthday party they go to, everything, but it's still so deeply ingrained, because they go, oh, Mom, no. They said that if you say them out loud, it won't come true, because they've seen it in movies, TV, everywhere. And I go, no, in our family, we do talk about our dreams. So that's one example that probably you and I share that we've experienced that contributes to this feeling of like, I'm not allowed to look, I'm not allowed to acknowledge, I'm not allowed to desire, and I'm definitely not allowed to talk about it. And if I do, it will all go away. And so the act of tracking and really looking at your money will bring up so much for people. Even when you were saying about savings, it's okay for me to have savings. I was thinking of how many of our mothers role modeled, well, they weren't allowed to have savings because they didn't have their own savings account.
Yeah.
They had to have some running away money stashed somewhere, like in their makeup case, in their underwear drawer. My mum kept hers in her sewing box, and it was like $200, between $200 and $500 is the most she would ever have in there. And that was the only example I've ever seen about having savings. It wasn't for anything good. It wasn't for a financial buffer. It wasn't to build future wealth. It was literally to run away and probably get one night's of accommodation and one night's worth of food. That was the only thing I'd ever seen role model around enoughness and excess. And so you think of all the things that we collectively have to unlearn, and then your own individual stories to pick out and look at and examine why it's so hard to do very, very simple things. There's millions of stories around it.
Yeah, so many. I think people listening are going to be having so many realizations and breakthroughs around this. One of the things that you teach in your bootcamp that has always stuck with me is writing down a password, right? Making your password what you want to manifest. And actually, before we move on to that, I actually have a story to share about, in the name of speaking your desires, letting them be known. For anyone that's listening that wants to write a book one day, I would not have landed my first book deal with Hay House had I not spoken about my desires. It just would not have happened, right? If I'd have just like, okay, this is my secret desire, I don't want to say it to anyone because I don't want to jinx it. Instead of doing that, I spoke about it all the time. I talked about it, I posted about it. And then one day I was at a dinner event in London with a bunch of random people that I didn't know, and I spoke about it. And then the person that I was sat next to, I said, oh, at the moment, like I'm manifesting a book deal with Hay House, and I'm writing my proposal, and this is what I want. And I was just super like out there with, this is what I want, this is what I'm calling in. And one of the people at the dinner table said, oh, I know someone that works in the press department. Do you want me to make an intro for you? And I was like, yes, please. Thank you, universe. And I would not have had that. I would have not got that if I had just kept it to myself. So I'm really big on speaking your desires, talking about your goals. I think it's really important for people to get.
I totally agree. And can I just share how I got my book deal?
Yes,
because
please.
This is another aspect of it too. At the start where I said about being consistent. So I've sent out a weekly newsletter for like 12 years. And it's not always fun to do that. Like most of the time I don't feel like doing stuff like that. But someone from Hay House was on my newsletter list for like 2 years. And then they contacted me and said, hey, I'd love to pitch you to my boss. And it didn't work out that time. That was probably 2015. And then I went, you know what, I'm going to go away and build my numbers and I'll come back to you. In the meantime, she was just like on my newsletter list as well. And so when I went back, I was like, here are my new numbers. Here's what I've done. And so when sometimes people start their business and they go, but no, I've hardly got any subscribers. You go, who cares? Send it out. You never know who's watching.
Yes.
You never know who's waiting for your newsletter to come out every week. And that consistency can really build some amazing things into your life.
Absolutely. Yes. So going back to what I started sharing earlier about the password thing, having what you want to manifest as a password. I've done this like literally since I heard you say it for the first time years ago, and it works a treat. And I wanted to share that my executive assistant, Amelia, has told me that she wants me to share this with you because she read Get Rich Lucky Bitch, your book, in early 2020 before she joined my team. And she set her laptop password as this money goal for the next 12 months. And then obviously the pandemic hit. All of her clients disappeared. She continued to hold this intention. She had this password, and then she managed to manifest the role with me, which is a full-time role, which helped her hit that exact money goal that she had as her password. So I think everyone should do that.
I love
it's a great
that. Way. It's so cool. And there's a couple of things around that. So, so many people, we use our password to be like, fluffy dog 1979, right? And it's just such a valuable manifesting real estate in your life because you type it in so many times. And so my current password is easy 10 million, and it has some other bits and pieces on it. So people won't necessarily guess it, but who cares anyway? But, and so every time I type it in, it's like it challenges me, right? Because it's a stretch goal. And I go, who would I be at that 10 million? And so it's sometimes your password, it's about acclimatizing yourself to what that would feel like, but it's also reminding you, keeping you on track of your goal. And it also shows up places where you might need to work on your mindset, and so the other thing that I've realized too, how important it is to make sure that you update all of your goals, because actually my iTunes password is 2 million and I've hit that 5 years ago. So I just haven't updated that, and so you've got to be consistent and be consistent in your desires around that. And so, I'm typing my iTunes password, 2 million. Cool. I've already hit that million, heaps of times. But my 10 million one, I'm like, that feels interesting. And so that's why you do it. It's just to uncover some stuff, get you used to saying it, even if it's just to your computer.
Yeah. And I imagine even people hearing you share those numbers will be triggered from hearing that. And so, obviously we're talking about like big amounts of money here. And obviously both of us are living very abundantly, and we have created a lot of abundance in our lives through this mindset work, through doing this work with money. What advice do you have for people that feel like I am so far away from that and they're in scarcity and they're trying to live more abundantly, they're trying to be more abundantly, but they're literally like, paycheck to paycheck, not much in their bank account? Like, what advice do you have for people listening?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I was there for many, many years myself. And so one of the hardest things, I suppose, is to live in that contrast. And so it's like, what do you have control over? And you might not have control over your income just yet, but you can control the little things that are around you. And this is what we talk about in Money Bootcamp, the incremental upgrade. It could be that you change your sheets more frequently. You spend, like that example I had about the electric blanket, that wouldn't have cost very much money to upgrade, but it would have changed my daily experience. It would have changed the story that I'm not worthy of being comfortable. I'm not worthy of pleasure. I'm not worthy of being warm, like literally the base level of stuff. And so see what is within your control with what you have right now. It could be that you use your perfume that you already own, that you use your favorite cup. Recently, what I started doing, and I can't believe how much stuff it brought up for me as a multimillionaire. I drink out of really big mugs, like massive mugs. And so recently I was like, I'm going to use 2 tea bags in this mug. And it brought up so much stuff for me. But I remember, like, when I was like 15 years ago, I would reuse tea bags over and over again. And then it was a really big deal for me to say, you know what, I'm worthy of a fresh tea bag because it's actually not that much money.
I love
It's
it.
not that much money in the grand scheme of things, but how much is a tea bag? And so literally this only happened about 2 months ago. I said, oh my God, I'm going to use 2 tea bags. My mum and my husband both went, look at you fancy bitch. And I was like, oh my God, it's a tea bag.
Here I am living in a multi-million, lifestyle, and I don't even have to, I can't even give myself an extra tea bag.
Yes. And so my husband was calling me 2 bags. He was like, it's 2 bags. And I just thought, how funny is that? But it just shows that we're so ingrained in, I have to make do. Like when you were saying about your family doing the car boot sales, again, even as a multimillionaire, I drive around, when people put their stuff out on the street that they don't want, I still like, oh, I could do something with that because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
You have to make do with what you've got. And so if you're in that place where you don't even realize the layers upon layers of things that you are putting up with and that you're dealing with. And it's not until you start unpicking those things one by one and going, you know what, I am going to have a fresh tea bag. You know what, I am going to wear a fresh t-shirt. Those things incrementally don't cost you a lot of money, but they're very symbolic. And then you do another one and then another one. And then soon you're layering in this new version of you that expects more, that deserves more. And it happens so incrementally that you trick yourself almost. You acclimatize into it without even realizing. Instead of thinking, well, I'm sitting at the back of the plane, someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and take me to the front of the plane. It's like, no, you acclimatize yourself to that bit by bit by bit, in showing that the universe that I am worthy of more. And those little things, they really add up over time. And then you can feel good where you are, and then you have bandwidth to desire more. But when you're struggling and every little thing around you is annoying and shit and inconvenience in economy class and reminding you of your poverty or your lack, it's just so much bandwidth. It's like a computer. It's running all these old programs and you just go, I'll just fix them bit by bit. And then you start with the free things. Then you start with the things that are just a little bit of money, and then you work your way up. And I remember when I was doing this too, I was like, each upgrade uncovered so much about my money mindset.
Yeah.
It really did, because I was like, no, I'm not worthy of this. I'm not allowed to have this. I remember even one of my upgrades was I wanted to go into nicer stores. And I remember like Mark and I, when we were first together, we were both, quite young and we were really broke. And I just was looking in a window and he put his hands over my eyes and he pulled me away and he said, don't even look. And I just thought, I'm allowed to look. It's okay for me to look. And so that was my first upgrade. I'm allowed to look. I'm allowed to desire. And then it was like, I'm allowed to go into the store. I'm allowed to touch things. I'm allowed to see what I like before I even look at the price tag.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to try on something. And each time I did that, it cost nothing. So same with manifesting this house, which was a whole multi-year long manifestation. It started with me looking on realestate.com.au and clicking the toggle from cheapest to most expensive.
Yes.
Allowing myself to look.
Yeah.
And then I allowed myself to go to an open house. There might have been 50 people there. Allowing myself to go there. And that allowing myself to come into this neighborhood and walk around feeling like I belonged took years of acclimatization. Driving around going, which house would we like to buy? It took so long because I didn't feel worthy of breathing the air, and the air was free.
You've just reminded me of something, and it's going to sound like just one of the most stupid things. But whenever I've stayed in hotel rooms, I would never allow myself to touch the fridge, the minibar ever, because you learn, well,
Yes.
you don't want to add extra, like they'll charge you for that. So it's like that space is banned. And so it was a really big moment for me to be able to go to check into a hotel room and be like, oh, I'm going to have whatever the fuck I want from the minibar. I'm going to have whatever I want from the fridge if I want it. And I'm going to be okay with that. Like, sounds such a small thing, but it was such a big deal.
I totally get that. You know, like, and again, if you want to acclimatize yourself to more wealth, but you can't afford to stay in a place like that, you can go and like visit, you know, you can go into the lobby and see what it brings up for you, because that's the most important thing. I don't belong here. You know, they're going to think I'm a fraud. Something that really did change my perception of this is when I was, you know, living in London in my early 20s, super broke. A friend of mine who was a dancer, in between contracts, he would go work at Prada, because Prada liked to hire young, hot dancers, basically. And he got paid £7 an hour to work in Prada. And I remember thinking how intimidating it would be to go into a store like Prada and feel like they were judging me. But all the people who worked there were just normal, hourly paid workers, just like anyone else. And that really shifted my perception, because I thought, actually, I'm allowed to go in. And what I've learned from living here in Newcastle, so it's you know, traditionally a very working class steel town, oil town, you know, that coal town, is that you can't tell by looking at someone how wealthy they are, because people wear like shorts and flip-flops all the time. And I used to think, oh, if I wanted people to think I was wealthy, I had to be really fancy.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing now that like you can go to an auction, which I still love going to house auctions. You know, there's a house that went for a couple of $1 million recently. Like, all the people who were there, you couldn't tell who was gonna buy it and who was just a looky-loo. And you know, but we've got these stories in ourselves of, oh, people won't believe me. Or people are going to know I'm a fraud and a fake. And that's part of you have to acclimatizing yourself to it.
Totally.
Not necessarily the clothes that you wear or the fake it till you make it. And that starts from allowing yourself to have a fresh tea bag.
Yes. Denise, there's just been so many amazing moments in this episode. I've absolutely loved this. I always ask every guest that comes on this show these 3 questions to wrap it up for love, sex, and magic. So what is something that you're loving right now? Something that you're just in love with?
Wow, such a great question. What am I in love with? I'm getting back into reading books. And it sounds so funny, but like just getting back into reading books and giving myself permission just to like read non-business books as well. Like reading for pleasure again is really fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what is something that turns you on?
I love talking about possibility. You know, and I get really excited. I love when people tell me their problems or their fears, because I get so excited about the transmutation of adversity and stories. And, you know, I just feel like I've got the best job in the world, because people tell me all their dirty money secrets. And I love it just so much. I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. This is why you do this. This is this. This is so great. So yeah, I just get turned on by the possibility of what we could all collectively do with more money. It's just really exciting to me.
Love it. And when was the last time you experienced magic?
Oh, well, as I said, I think this is magic, right? You know, I'm in Australia. You're in Costa Rica right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is magic. This is magic. I'm so grateful. Like every day, I'm so grateful for the tools that we have. You know, I was telling someone recently about when I first started my business, and I was like, oh, every webinar that I did, every call that I did for my community would cost me $60 to $80, because I had to phone in to a US-based teleseminar company, and it would cost me $80 to do this call. And I was like, this is magic. Like the tools that we have, It is magical. Like, how else would you describe it? Like, I know it's science, but science is magic too. Like, this planet we live on is just so magical. And this time we live in is still fraught, and it's messy, and it pisses me off still. There's that last gasp of that masculinity. They're holding on to their political positions and their power and their economic power. And they're just the magic. It can't be denied now that,
Yeah.
women, people are rising up and just going, well, I deserve to live a beautiful life too. And it's the courage that I've seen people show recently in Australia and other countries, other places where we're just like, this isn't good enough anymore. Wow, what a cool time we live in.
So cool. Amazing. Yeah. Well, where can everyone come and find you, Denise? We're going to hop into the membership community and answer some more questions for our goddesses in there. But for everyone else, where can they come hang out, take your programs, work with you, get more Denise in their life?
I'm super easy to find. So my website is denisedt.com. And if you go to /blocks, that will give you a free workshop about how to look at 7 blocks that I've seen most entrepreneurs do. And then I love hanging out on Instagram. I think that's my favorite way to connect with people personally. So feel free always to send me a DM. I love hearing, as I said, people's secret dirty money stories, especially if something from this conversation sparked a really particular thing. I love hearing about it. So I'm at Denise DT all across the socials as well. And I love hearing from people. That would make my day.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Denise. Really appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.
So, beloveds, I hope you got so many takeaways from that episode. If you did, please share it with your friends, share it on your stories, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, if you want extra bonus segments with all of our guests, come and join us inside the Goddess Collective membership, where we dive even deeper with all of the amazing people that we have on this show. Until next time, have a beautiful week.